Okay guys, I kind of wanted to review what I showed you in class. So I've already wedged my clay. It's a pretty good sized chunk of clay. So now I'm going to start making it into a long cylinder, kind of like a really fat large coil. Okay, I'm just going to kind of pat it to get it into that cylinder shape. And again, make sure that you wedge it good. You're going to look at your wrist. So we're doing our wrist, you know, about the bottom 4 inches of it. Okay, so notice how it tapers and gets a little bit smaller before it attaches to your hand. So that's kind of what we're going for. Okay, I'm going to flatten it out a little bit here. So round this top. The other thing that I noticed about my wrist is that it's not like this perfect circle. It's kind of a little bit flat. So I'm gonna flatten it out just a little bit. Again, I'm making it a little bit fatter at the base here than it realistically is. But if you want it to stand up, if we don't make it a little bit bigger, that tends to kind of fall over. Just gonna roll mine on the table just to stretch it out a little bit more. It's a little shorter than I want it. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so that's what we're looking for the wrist. And then the next thing we want to do is kind of the palm of the hand. Grab my knife here and some extra clay. Okay, so basically I'm trying to make the shape. And I'm just kind of doing kind of patty cake here. We could roll it out, but then you get it all the same thickness. And we really, like if you're looking at the palm of your hand, it's kind of fat right here. It's actually muscle. And then it gets thinner as it goes up towards your fingers. There's less muscle. Okay, so I'm trying to make a piece of clay, and I feel like this is maybe a little bit big, so I'm gonna cut a little bit off. It's already kind of rounded at the bottom here. I kind of like that. So I'm just gonna make it a little bit thinner up here. And I really like the idea of like literally just kind of putting it here on your hand and kind of almost like tracing it in a way. Should be just a little bit bigger than your hand. Okay, and I have this kind of indentation right here on the bottom of my palm, so I'm gonna kind of put that just subtly right there. Okay, and so this looks like this could go on here pretty well. Okay, but I want it to stick really well. So what I'm gonna do is I wanna cut this at an angle. So I'm basically just kind of slicing a piece off at an angle. I don't wanna do just the top. I'm doing kind of like a side. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut kind of like a triangle off. Okay, just like that. So now you have like kind of a big oval right here that's nice and flat, a good place for you to attach this palm. Again, look at your own hand and kind of make sure that it's right. To me, I still have this a little bit thick, so I'm just gonna kind of thin it out one more time. And you're gonna notice sometimes it'll just do that just sitting because this is really wet, kind of fresh clay. So as it kind of sets up and you keep going back and doing this, I think you'll be able to get it to stay. Okay, that looks pretty good. You might want to slip and score, okay? I'm just gonna kind of smear it in because I have really fresh clay. I do suggest slipping and scoring. Sometimes you get a big dent right here too. I'm gonna smear it in first, see what it looks like. If there's a dent, then I'm gonna wanna smooth coil or something in there. I'm just literally taking some of the clay from the side here and smearing it up. And I'm going to do the same thing, the side of this hand. I'm going to smear it down. Kind of going both ways. And that actually looks pretty good. I don't think I need to add a coil. Leave a little bit of a dent here. I mean, you do kind of naturally have a little bit of a dent right there where your hand hangs over your wrist a little bit. So that's okay. One thing I also like to do is sometimes I'll put a coil around the bottom just to give myself a little bit more stability. So I'm going to go ahead and use some of this extra clay that I pulled off to make my coil. It can be really small, like even a little bit smaller than your pinky. Again, it's just to add a little bit of a base to your piece. Mine's going to be holding something kind of heavy, so I want to make sure that it doesn't fall over backwards. Okay, just put this around, and kind of the same thing. I'm just going to smear this in. It's just giving it a nice base so that it's not going to fall over. So it looks a little funny right now, but once you get the whole hand done, it should be fine. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing to the bottom. I'm just going to kind of smear it in. Make sure that everything is good. Look, you can see that nice twisty motion there from my wedging. That's a good thing. Means I did it right. Okay. All right, so we've got a nice palm, we've got a nice wrist. Now we need to work on a thumb. So I'm going to use clay here. A little extra. Go with this. And I want to use my own thumb as a model. And you kind of have to, at this point, decide which side you're going to go for. So I think I'm going to put my thumb on this side. Okay, so I just rolled it a little bit. Notice that my thumb goes to kind of a point. Okay, right now we're gonna have all of our fingers kind of like this, and then once we get them all on there, we can change them. Okay, so just trying to make it look like my thumb. I want it about the same size as my thumb, maybe a little bit bigger. So mine's a little bit flatter. Also, I'm just kind of like noticing that it kind of pinches, it goes in here a little bit. It's like it's almost wider up here. So I want to do that same thing with my clay piece. Okay. And then again, I want to cut this at an angle. Okay, so just cutting this kind of at an angle sideways. Okay. So that it will fit on there nice and perfectly. Okay, so I'm not putting it on top. I'm not putting it underneath. I'm putting it right on this side right here. Okay, and it should be down pretty low. I mean, look at your hand and kind of make sure that they're the same. See if you guys can kind of see. Looks like they're about the same spot. Okay. So I'm going to smear that in really good. Make sure it's smeared out good on the other side. And right here you want to try and get in there and smear that out too. So you might use a toothbrush, not a toothbrush, a Q-tip or one of your tools. Toothbrush is not going to quite do it. Okay, so now I'm going to put some of the other details just subtly. You know, I can see a little line right here. Supposedly, I think that's your love line. And then down here is your lifeline. So I've already kind of put that lifeline in. Now I'm going to put my love line in right here. I'm exaggerating them a little bit more than they actually are. I can go back and I can mellow those out later. Also, I've got a lot of wrinkling right here, you know, where my thumb kind of meets. There's like that extra skin right there. So I'm going to put some of that in. And again, I'm kind of exaggerating it. I can go back and mellow it out later. There's some lines down here at the bottom of my hand, and I can also kind of see some tendons right in here, like where my wrist is. So some lines right here, kind of where my tendons are, and then I can go back and kind of mellow them out a little bit. All right, we're gonna do a finger. Again, when you put your fingers on, kind of have them just kind of like bent like this. And then again, we can always go back and change that. Okay, so I'm just kind of using this as my finger as a guide, so it's still a little bit big to me. And I'm looking at the shape of it, and it's not, again, it's not this perfect circle. It's a little bit flat. So I'm just gonna flatten this out a little bit. It's broken up into sections. So I'm gonna put a little bit of that in. Just kind of looking at my finger. And then same thing, I'm going to want to cut this at an angle so it fits on there. So I'm basically just kind of shaving off the side. Let's see, make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. So like that. And then that can go right there. And that will get, I'm gonna actually slip and score that on. Okay, hopefully that helps, guys. Don't forget too that you want to hollow the bottom of this out, but you might wanna leave it out for about a half an hour before you hollow it. Okay.